Everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and I've been holding on to this video for quite a minute. I wanted to talk about, I watched the show, it's probably been like a month and a half or so, and I've just been sitting on it, kind of just waiting to really kind of gather my thoughts, think about like what I want to talk about and stuff, because honestly, and this isn't clickbait, I genuinely believe that the entire plot, not the entire, I shouldn't say the entire plot, but overall, the plot, to Demon Slayer Season 1 is kind of garbage. Like, there's a lot that happens, but there's not a lot of important stuff that happens. Like, you could honestly, it's 26 episodes. This whole season could have been halved, and they could have had all the plot lines in that. They probably could have had it in less, if I'm being totally honest. They probably could have done this entire effing series in like 8 episodes, and it would have been like the actual plot. It's cool to watch. So I'll say this, I'll start from the beginning. I don't think you're like dumb if you like the show or anything random like that. Like, there's definitely stuff to enjoy in this, and so I'll talk about the things that I do like first, and then I'll kind of just get into my extreme criticism of like literally just the plot. Like, not like the characters do this or I'm annoyed by this. Literally the actual storyline. If I lay it out for you, you will understand that it's kind of useless. Like, cool stuff happens, but it's just useless to watch it and just be like, wow, you go from episode 1 to 26, and realistically 4 actual things happen that are like, holy crap, like plot wise, this is important. There's like 4 things in 26 episodes. So starting off with the stuff I like, obviously the animation looks good. It's a good looking anime. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me of some older school anime, just new school style. So I like how it looks. The visual representation of the powers, you got your water breathing and stuff, your lightning breathing, and everybody has their own stuff. Fire being different from flames, and so, I'll get into that. But it looks good. Like, visually, it looks good. The action is really good. And it's also, and this I think is a big part, these 2 things I think are a giant part as to why people love this anime so much. It looks good, and it's very fast paced as far as action. Plot wise though, it's garbage. Like, action wise, it's like, oh, this is really entertaining. Like, you go through it and there's a lot of stuff happening. Like, you don't have to wait too long for a cool action, set piece. Like, the build up is decent, but nothing is actually happening. And I realized, and it took me a minute to get to this point, but I realized watching Demon Slayer is the same thing as watching Boruto, except you just get cool action. And that's about it. Because in both shows, if you watch like the whole first season, it's like, okay, yeah, some things are happening plot-wise, but ultimately it's just like nothing of real importance is actually happening here. Demon Slayer is just more entertaining because it actually has some action, and of course it looks way better than Boruto, but it also has a buttload more action in it. Like, when Boruto has good action, it's really good. Like, the action scenes when they spend all their money, it's like, oh, that's pretty sick. That's classic cool Naruto stuff. Demon Slayer does that as well. They just do it more frequently, and so it's more entertaining. But it's honestly, it's like watching Boruto. Like, plot-wise, it's like watching Boruto. It's the same thing. Like, a couple of little things happen, but it's like, I wish we would just get to something cool now. And in this, I'm even more annoyed. Even with all the cool action, I'm just like, I wish something more important would happen, because going from beginning to end, 26 episodes. I'm sure there's some filler in there. I've never actually read the manga, but I'm sure something in there isn't actually in the manga just to pad out the episodes. That's over a year. If we're going by, the normal rule is like there's like about 3 chapters per every episode of an anime. So I think it was 72 weeks. I did the math, something like that. And so you go through, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I don't know if it's monthly or not. I would assume it's weekly. It's a shonen. So you go through 26 episodes. That's about over a year. I'm sure there are breaks and all this other stuff. About a year's worth of content. And really nothing happens. Like, he literally doesn't get introduced to the actual Demon Slayer core of people until the end of the series. And everything before that, there's not like, oh, this is how this works, this is how that works. It's literally just like, here's how swords work, and he gets trained. That's really about it. And he meets some other people that have been trained. And that's about it. They don't actually talk about Demon Slayers and truly what they do outside of fighting demons. They don't talk about like, this is the leader of the Demon Slayer. They don't do any of that stuff until like a year in. If you're going manga time, about a year in, that's when you start to meet other people. And that's why I actually like the end of this. I was like, man, the most entertaining thing about this whole season to me was like the last 3 episodes where it's like he met like the top 10 people, and then he actually trains to learn a new technique. Other than that, it was just like, okay, I gotta fight this character. Oh man, this is tough. Let me whip out this new technique that I got, and then he ends up succeeding with that new technique, and it's super cool. Or they get to the end where it's like he fights the Spider Kid, and it's like he actually teams up with his sister because she finally realizes what her demon power is. He realizes that he can use a different dance, and he uses the flame dance, which is not the fire dance. And so that's a whole thing where I'm like, I told my friend, I was like, as soon as they were like, the flame dance is actually different than the fire dance. I've never heard of it, and I was like, it might as well have just ended with the narration. Like, and that's how I became the greatest demon slayer of all time, My Hero Academia demon slayer. Like, that's what's gonna happen. Like that's obvious for me. So I was like, okay, that's just how it goes. That's the whole thing. I like the animation, I like the action, and then the plot is kind of just garbage. About 6 episodes of this 26 episode series, maybe 8. I'll even give you 10. Not even half the series. I'll give you 10 episodes are actually relevant. The first episode, you have to introduce characters, so it's like, here's my family, they're dead, it's anime, we all saw that coming. Sister doesn't end up fighting. Okay, she's a demon, but she's good, she's allowed to live, so they have to go through that whole process. He ends up training, he meets spirits, once again, plot garbage stuff. That doesn't come up at all. The whole rest of the season, he saw some spirits one time, and this is like the beginning. Like, I watch Naruto. I understand plot lines getting dropped. Remember ninja cards? Those don't matter. That was pointless. That made money and then it was forgotten. Inner Sakura, that was a thing. Remember that? Stuff just gets dropped. It happens. It's anime. It's storytelling. That was like the 2nd or 3rd episode, and he met ghosts, and then they just never talk about it again. Like, he can see spirits. Like, it's confusing. Like, that should be a giant part. Like, they talk about how he can smell stuff all the time. This dude can see ghosts, and I'm just like, how is that not relevant to the story? It wasn't like they made it a one-off thing, and that's, of course, once again, the plot line of the actual manga, I would assume, but it's just crazy to me. I'm like, you introduced that in like the 3rd episode, and it never comes back. He doesn't say like, oh, I thought I saw someone over there, or spirits leading him, like the people that are killed by demons, maybe. I don't know, that could be a part of the series. This demon killed like 100 people in this town. Oh, I'm seeing like specific spirits, or I'm seeing either like an old spirit or someone that just died whose spirit hasn't moved on yet. Anything like that could have been kept in the series, but it was introduced, and then it was like, well, they're put to rest now. He killed that one demon, they're fine. And then he fought somebody. Like, that's I'm like, that's a giant plot line. Like, you can focus on this dude can smell a bunch of stuff, but you just forgot he saw ghosts that one time. Like, it was nothing. Was it because he was in the mountains? I don't think so. That's not even where they died. So I don't understand it. They didn't die in that mountain. They died way somewhere else. They're eaten by this demon, but he saw them on the mountaintop when he's training to cut the rock in half. And I'm just like, I don't understand how that, like, that's a giant thing to have where a dude can see ghosts and he's fighting demons. I think that would be unique to his character, and then it's forgotten. So that's dumb. But then we go through, like I said, we're still technically, at this point though, we're still in like, okay, this is the beginning of the series, let's see how this goes. So family dies. His sister is a demon who will not eat him. He goes to train. He trains for 2 years, which once again, I was just like, wow, for a show, I was like, oh, they're going to keep it moving. Like, he did all that training in 2 years, and then amazingly, nothing else happens in the rest of his life. I guess. I don't know, because nothing happens in the rest of the season. So he trains for 2 years. Nezuko slept for 2 years. That was weird, because she just slept for 2 straight years. Period. She didn't wake up, nothing. She just slept for 2 years, and then after that, she woke up, and then sometimes she slept after that, and it was just like, those 2 years, she just really needed to sleep. So it was cool. So he trained, she slept, everything's cool. He gets his mask, he gets his outfit. I actually like the blue jacket. I was like, it kind of sucked that he ended up leaving that behind for like his main outfit. I was like, dang, I actually liked him having like the blue outfit. I thought it looked cooler, probably because I like blue. But I thought that was cooler than what he got as his main outfit. So we're going through first couple of episodes, very relevant stuff. Dead family, 2 years of training. He goes to become an actual demon slayer. He kills this demon. He lets the souls finally rest in peace. He's like one of 4 people that end up actually surviving, which was super crazy. I mean, out of all those people, obviously you got to have everyone that doesn't just wear a random black outfit. Obviously, those characters are special, so they get to live. So like 4 people made it out. And that's where we meet, the dude with the yellow hair. I suck at names, so I only remember Tanjiro and Nezuko. Yellow hair dude, he annoys me. There's always that annoying character in the anime where it's like, oh, he's supposed to be annoying. He's the dude who likes girls a lot and all that stuff. But he's actually annoying. Like, I've never actually been annoyed by a character where it's like, I've seen that personality a million times over in anime. but he actually annoys me. And then I also just hate how they utilize his character. It was like he has this amazing ability, but he literally has to pass out, and he has split personality. Once again, story-wise, I assume that at some point in the manga, he eventually reconciles those two sides of himself, and he's able to utilize his great abilities while he's awake. But also, is it just never brought up that he doesn't fight, that he's scared all the time, and he manages to survive everything? Has he never questioned that? Like, oh man, you beat that demon, like, thanks for saving my life. And it's like, every time he gets into a fight and he passes out, he's just like, lucky me, huh? Like, that must be his whole life. Like, he seems happy-go-lucky, so maybe that's actually it. But I'm like, the only way he survives is if he literally passes out. And I thought he was gonna be my favorite just because I was like, oh, we saw that power, but I'm like, he literally has to pass out for it to work. And that's another part of why it's annoying, because it's like, it doesn't lead to any sort of like development or tension either, because it's like, he's not gonna die, so he literally just screams and gets scared and pisses himself, and then he passes out, and then he does a one shot, and it's like, it looked cool, of course it does, it's amazing, it's a one shot kill, but it's like, he literally has to be passed out to do it, and you know that that's all that's gonna happen. Either someone else is gonna save him, or he's just gonna pass out and do a one hit kill, and that's what's gonna happen. And it's gonna be one hit, maybe two. He's gonna go into like his one punch mode, and then boom, he wins. And it's just like, that's not as entertaining as it's cool to see that in clips, but as an actual story, even that in its own mini little pocket dimension, that's kind of dumb, because it's literally just on a loop. It's like, oh, he screams, he's scared, he passed out, one hit kill. Oh man, that's crazy, I lived. That's his whole story. That's all he can do until they like blend those two things together. So it's just interesting. I was like, okay, that's his character. And he was also kind of annoying. Like, he had some funny moments. Like, his face I thought was super funny. Like, the way they would animate his face was funny, but him screaming all the time was just like, that doesn't entertain me. So there's that. He's like the one character where I'm just like, there's so much there, but his whole storyline is just a loop. Any fight, scared, pass out, one hit kill, scared, pass out, one hit kill. So there's that. Then there's the actual, like I said, the rest of the plot. So we're still going through meeting characters and stuff like that, and then we get into the parts where it starts to lose it. So he meets the main villain, and that was cool. That was a cool moment where it's like, oh, here's visually the main villain. Also, they're living in like 1912. That blew my mind. Like, as soon as they went to that town, I was like, oh crap, this is not as old as I thought it was. I assumed that this was, classic old school ancient Japan. And then they went to that city and it had lights and stuff. I was like, let me Google this. So the whole manga, the manga's finished, by the way. It takes place between 1912 and 1926. And that was just weird for me, because I thought, it starts off with the old school village, so it's still 1912. But I was just like, when they went to that town, I'm like, when is this? This is way more modern than I anticipated. Like, unless he dies in the manga, Tanjiro's gonna have like TV with his grandkids. Like, think about that. This isn't as old as it seemed when it first started. And I was just like, oh, that's weird. They have like technology. So that was weird. That was just a random thing that just shocked me, because I really thought it was super old school. Like, it involved, I don't know why, but it involves demons, so it's just like, that's always like ancient stuff, and it's like, no, it's fairly modern times. So I was like, that's very interesting, actually. So I enjoyed that. I thought it was actually kind of cool. So I was like, all right, that's just interesting. He meets the main villain. He's about to, run up on him. Then he sees he's got a kid, and it's like, oh crap, and it stops him. I love the main villain where he's like, hell, he must be confused, and he just hit that dude at super speed. I was like, that's effed up, but it was super funny. And so then we get into like the first big fight of the show. And so he sends basically like his two little bodyguards he had in town. Also, I haven't mentioned this. The reason I have Magikarp here is this floppy Magikarp, is because I have more value from this than I did that whole show. I just like this more than the anime. So that's why Magikarp is there. It's just funny. It made me laugh way more than the show did, and it's just more entertainment. That's just, look at that. That's just better than the show. So anyway, he goes into his first big fight, and it was good. It was definitely, once again, visuals are fantastic. He fights the arrow dude, he fights the woman with all the balls, and she's just blasting through people. We meet the doctor demon who decides that she doesn't want to kill humans, her apprentice, and how he's just madly in love with her and all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, I like these two characters. Once again, this stuff is important. Him running into the main villain early on was mostly important because it led to like the first really big fight, and he knows that someone actually has the balls to go after this dude. And also, no one has seen him, I think, ever. I think he was technically like the first person in the Demon Slayer Corps to actually even run into the guy. So it was like, okay, it had like some slight relevance. He actually like saw what his main opposition looked like. And then it's like, oh crap, this kid's like actually got guts. He's coming after me. So he sends his lieutenants out. They lie and they say that they're a part of like, the ranking system, but they're actually not. And so it's just a cool battle. It's like, okay, this is important. They have to, the doctor and her apprentice, they have to leave town because it's like, well, now they know where I'm at. So I got to take off. They kill those two demons. They had their tragic backstory or whatever. And so then it keeps going. And I'm like, okay, right at that point, I think the whole thing, it just falls apart because there's nothing else that actually happens after that. He just fights people. And I'm like, yeah, you can have that, and it's entertaining, of course. And I think that's a giant chunk of why people love this anime so much, because it's like, it's just one cool fight after the other. But that's also it. Nothing really happens. Like, he's technically getting blood from these other demons, but I felt like they could have done that in like almost a montage. If I'm being totally honest, they could have once again sped the story up where he goes through multiple missions and he just takes out, kind of smaller demons, and then he takes them out, and then, he gets the blood from them, and then that's pretty much it. Or they could have just shortened it down where he just ends up fighting less demons and he just has to keep getting, more and more blood. Because he goes through, he fights in the one village where the guy ends up losing his fiance, and so he fights the demon that can like go in the ground and stuff like that. And that was cool. Once again, visually, it's great. Plotline wise, it was like, all right, it was the first small fight, so you kind of give it a pass. And then, backstory and all that garbage, which is like my least favorite thing. Like, they kill demons, and that's, once again, plot wise, that every character they fight, every demon they fight, except for him running into the main villain, every single demon gets killed. And then they do a backstory for said demon. And it's like, why would I care? You just killed this character. They're dead. It's not like they may have died, but then they escape to go talk to the main villain and be like, hey, we need to look out. Like, something may or may not happen. Or they leave and then they come back later. Everyone just dies. If every single villain always died, there would be no story. And that's what this show does. Like, every villain just dies, and then they have no actual relevance. Their most relevant thing is making Tanjiro sad, because he's like, I understand you're sad, and I'm sad for you. It makes no sense, because they're all demons that just kill people left and right, and they have no regard for anything whatsoever as far as like peace and human life. Not that they don't have a choice. There are literally two characters that do it, not counting Nezuko, because for her it's like a spell, but they're characters that are demons that just decide not to. Everyone else decides to kill everyone, and it's like, I understand you're sad. I just lost my family, dude. I get it. He pulled a Zuko on everybody. Like, that's rough, buddy. Like, that's what he does. Every time somebody dies, he's like, that's so sad. And he'll touch their hand or put his hand on their back and all this stuff, which I guess they can feel. There are a couple of parts where I'm like, can they feel that when they're decapitated? But it seems like they can, so I don't know. And I'm just like, this is stupid. And it made me super pissed. Like, I was just waiting, basically. It got to the end of the season. He fights through the little town with the fiance guy. Kills that demon, gets the blood. They go and they fight the drum dude, where I was like, oh, this seems like it could be relevant. He used to be a part of the actual 6 numbers or whatever. So he's able to change this, the palace that they're in, and it makes it seem infinite and stuff like that. And it's just super crazy. Then he kills him, and that was it. And I was like, oh, okay, he's dead now. And then they fought the spider guy, and I was like, oh, okay. He kills him, and he's dead. And then his tragic backstory. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't mean anything, even though he was the strongest person they fought. Also, he didn't beat him, which once again was entertaining, because I was like, oh, they pulled off like the ultimate technique. He went full flame mode and all this stuff, and his sister had the exploding blood, which is technically the only time the visual representation was even close to accurate, because technically speaking, the water doesn't actually come out of his sword, just like the lightning doesn't come out of the other dude's blade. All their katanas are just katanas. They're people that have like insane superhuman abilities, but they don't actually like shoot water out and stuff like that. That's just a visual representation. That was probably the closest time anything actually happened that was visually the same as what would have actually happened within that world, because the blood exploded. Other than that, it's just, it's just cool visuals, which once again make everything look nice. But he goes through, he fights all these people, and he kills all these people, and nothing happens. He just kills people that are stronger than the last person, and then he's sad at the end, and that's about it. That's like the whole season. Nothing actually happens. And then when they finally defeat the main villain at the end, like the spider kid, who is actually one of the lower levels or whatever, I forgot the name. They kill them off. And that's when we finally get introduced to the rest of like the main people from the Demon Slayer Corps, like the top 10 people. And that was when things got entertaining. I was like, wow, I actually care. Something is actually happening, because you meet other people, not these random dudes where everyone dresses exactly the same because they're like the low level members who just go in, and they all suck, by the way. Like, that's something that I don't think they ever reference. Like, everyone seems to suck except for the main characters. And I know that's a thing, but they would literally send in groups of people. And it's just like, especially, the spider dude specifically, I understood that because they were all low-level characters. And then he was, like the boss character, if you will. So he just slices a bunch of people up. And I was like, I kind of understand that, because, and plus they're dealing with a group. So they're dealing with one dude who's like one of the lower 6 members. And then his weird family of spider people. And they've been alive for a super long time too. And I'm like, okay, these people dying specifically made a lot of sense because they were all, like I said, younger members. They were going into something where they had no clue they were about to deal with one of the big bads. So I was like, okay, that made sense. But also everyone seems to suck. Like every single person. Like when they did the first contest, even though it's not really a contest, but the training thing, I also kind of understood that. But everybody just dies. It's like, if it's not one of the main people, everyone just dies off, and that's it. They're either getting saved by a main character, or they're dying in front of a main character. And that's it. And I was just like, this is weird. They have so many people that just seem to suck. And they're just, obviously the cannon fodder anime characters, but it's just like, wow, do something, please. So they go through whole season. This person dies. All right, well, nothing happens there. You just killed them. So there's no development there, except for a pointless backstory. Like they waste like 30 minutes talking about their sad life after they died. That's another thing. How do you tell the story out of order like that? Like I know it's probably generic at this point to tell the sad stuff in between the fight, and that's probably another reason people enjoy it, because they don't break up the fight. Like it's a classic Naruto move. But it's also stupid because I'm like, you might as well not show it. Like who cares about a flashback for a character that just died? This isn't a character that was, once again, in the last battle and then they came back stronger or something like that, and the characters meet up again as rivals. They just showed up. We just found out what this dude's name was, and then you cut his head off, and then he told a story about his sad life. You don't matter. Why did they waste time even having that in the actual storyline? It makes no sense to me. So just watching it, I'm like, you already killed him. There's literally nothing they're gonna do in the series, and then you gave a pointless backstory after they died. Because like once they're dead, it's like, who cares about the motivations or why they became that way? It's just like an end cap. Instead of ending like, it's just a different way to end it. It's literally just like, instead of it being like, whoa, they just ended that battle, it ends, and then they're like, let's get dramatic for a second for a character that's not coming back. Like, tell the story in between. Like, have him care about the demons as he's fighting them, maybe, instead of after he kills them. Because the whole time he's fighting them, it's just like, you're a monster, you're a demon, you're so evil. And then after, it's like, I misunderstood you. That's the whole anime. It's very stupid. Like, it makes no sense. And then, of course, we get to the end, and it's like, oh, we introduce new characters. We actually get real training. We see the training. We get, the new breath technique, being able to breathe that way, even in your sleep and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is interesting. And then, the whole flame thing and becoming, basically My Hero Academia. Like, I'm the greatest person ever because nobody can do this thing. And that's it. That was the whole season. So there's a lot of other stuff. Like, why doesn't the government sanction them? Why do some people know demons exist, but other people don't know demons exist? That seems really weird to me, especially with a group that has literal medics who are like, I joined to help against demons, but I don't even fight. I just help as a medic. If you have that many different factions within a Demon Slayer group or corporation, I think more people should know that demons exist. It just seems weird to me. I'm like, that just seems so odd. Like when they go to the village where the guy lost his fiance, they thought he like killed her or something, and that seems weird to me because I'm like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That just seems odd. And they mentioned that multiple people disappeared, so it makes it even weirder that for whatever reason he specifically was targeted when his fiance disappeared. But they say like multiple people have disappeared, but for some reason when she got lost, it was his fault. It was really weird. I'm just like, what? Wouldn't demons should be super common? The government should definitely be a part of it. It wouldn't change the series either. Like, it's just random. Aside from being able to call out how stupid it is, it doesn't even change the series. Like, the demon killed people in an alleyway. It happens. People will die in dark corners, but people can still know demons exist and they'll live their normal life. They won't know a demon's right in front of them, and a demon wouldn't do that because it's like one demon against an entire, village worth of people. Depending on the demon, it could probably do some damage. But also, it would just be reckless. Like, why take the chance when a Demon Slayer could easily be around the corner? When the group is so freaking huge, a Demon Slayer could be anyone around. I mean, I guess it's not like they hide. They're clearly in plain sight. Like, they all wear the same outfit. It's a Demon Slayer when you see one. But there's definitely some other points. But I wanted to talk about it. Like I said in the beginning of this, if you like the anime, I totally understand. I totally get it. It looks good. There's a lot of action in it. But if you look at the actual plot, you don't even have to actually question, like, why does this thing make sense? Why does that not make any sense? What was the actual training that Tanjiro went through and stuff like that? Like, we never even knew he had any of the techniques. We don't know, even now, like, 10 might be the last number. I don't really know, though. I'm not 100% sure that that's the case, because technically we never saw him learn a single technique. He just knew them as he got into the fights, and we saw him utilize them, and that was how they got revealed. And I'm okay with that, just because it's like, oh, it makes it even more special when you just see him bust out a new technique. But they literally didn't even show like the first 3. It was just like, dang, like you don't know anything that can happen. I guess technically they may have shown like 1 or 2 when he had like his first battle, but or before that when he met like the very first guy. But it was just like, I don't like, it's just like stuff seems to go fast paced, and then it slows down plot wise where nothing actually happens. He just fights a couple people, and then by the end, that's when we get a real storyline where it's like, oh, the flame stuff gets introduced. Like, they literally could have cut out everything except for the spider character, and it would have been the exact same storyline. Like, he could have just gotten the blood from him and his fellow demons, and that would have been exactly the same. No one can say the one demon's name. Like, they could have figured that out from the spider demon. That would have been easy. Or one of the lesser demons from, you know, the spider character. Everything they did, they literally could have done in just that one battle, and it would have made more sense story-wise. It just wouldn't have been as drawn out. But those are my thoughts on the anime. I thought it was kind of a garbage plot because nothing actually happens in 26 episodes. It happens in like maybe 10 episodes. You get some real plot. And then, you know, we'll see what happens going forward. I am going to check it out. I might just read the manga since it ended just so I can like get through it just to see the story. But I'm just like, I don't understand why it's so popular, except for the anime looks good and the action is fairly frequent. And I feel like that's really it. The characters are fine, I guess. I mean, there's still some questions there for some of the people, but overall, just the plot, not hating on it or anything like that. I watched the entire series because I was like, there's got to be something here, and I literally had the most fun at the very beginning and the very end were like my favorite parts because I was like, okay, I'm getting into the story, and then I felt like something was actually happening that was worth paying attention to, because everything else was just a pointless battle where they kill a character. They do learn like some minute thing here, like the first big battle was important. The drum guy was irrelevant. I'm gonna just call it the fiance demon because I can't think of the demon that goes in and out of the ground. That was fairly irrelevant. I think the only thing they learned from that whole battle was that demons can't say the main demon's name, and like I said, they could have shortened that down. That could have just, I think technically that was in the first one. That was in the first one. I think the main character just didn't realize that, but I think that was in the very first fight. They literally did that because that's how the woman died. She said his name by mistake and she blew up. So I don't think they learned anything from that one fiance demon. Now that I think about it, they just got more blood. So there's just a lot of stuff where I'm just like, story-wise, it could have just been like, boom, just cut out a giant chunk of this. You have the exact same story. You just have less action, but as an actual story, there's so much you could take out of this entire first arc, this entire first season. You'd be perfectly fine. You'd have the exact same story with like half the episodes. And I honestly believe that. And that's why I think the plot is kind of garbage, because nothing actually happens for 26 episodes. It happens for like 3 episodes in the beginning, and then maybe like the last 5 episodes, you probably get some decent stuff, and that's about it. There's some couple pieces in the middle there, but for the most part, that's how I feel about the show. I just had to talk about it because I'm just like, I know it's so popular. It's like the highest selling anime right now. The movie is, I think, is officially the #1 anime movie. I think it's officially beat Your Name at this point. So it's quite popular, and I just don't feel any attachment to it. They use katanas. I love that. That's great. That's like the coolest thing ever. It's samurai. Technically, that's like one of my favorite things, but I like a good storyline around that. And it has a good story. That's the thing. Every time I watch it, or every episode I was going through, I'm like, there's something here. Like, I know that this could be more entertaining. And it proved it at the end when I actually met other characters and actually started to learn things about the world instead of him just fighting a random dude and then they tell a stupid backstory that doesn't matter because you died. You're not coming back. It doesn't matter why you're this way. Plus, you're a demon, and then it's just a poof, 180. Like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Oh, you have a sad backstory. I'm sad now, too. It's like, that doesn't even make sense. But those are my super long, rambly thoughts on Demon Slayer Season 1. We'll see what happens with this movie. We'll see what happens with Season 2. I would love to know why you like it. And if you don't like it, I would love to know why. Like I said, there's some stuff that I didn't even bother bringing up. Like, there's just some random things that do happen in this show where I'm like, that just didn't need to happen, or it just didn't even really make a lot of sense. So I would love to know your thoughts on the anime. It's super popular. I just think it's garbage. Story-wise, there's some stuff that's great. Animation looks good. The fights are fun. But the actual plot, which is why I enjoy watching anything, it's just kind of garbage. It's a nothing plot. Would love to know your thoughts on that. Sorry this was a ramble, but there was a lot worth talking about because it's like there are a lot of things to just wonder about as to how this kept going. I could see this being a manga where week by week you only get like a tiny snippet. I could see how it does that and it works for sure. But when I watched it all the way through, I'm just like, nothing even happened here. So I think it's easier to watch it in segments, and that might just be a big part of it, where it's like I got to see the full story play out. And then I'm like, it was so obvious to see that I could have just taken out like a fourth or maybe half of this entire show, and then I would have had the exact same show. And I think once that happens, I'm just like, I'd give up those fights to actually be entertained by everything outside of the fights. So my thoughts on it. Would love to know yours, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. If you can find this floppy magic card, I guarantee you'll get a lot of entertainment out of it. If you really like the anime, this probably won't be better, but if you don't like the anime that much like me, this is better. This is better than Demon Slayer Season 1. So those are my thoughts. Would love to know yours. Please put them down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.